Welcome back to AI Business English Daily. In about 15 minutes, we use one real AI business story to understand how technology companies, product strategy, and business models are changing.
No hype, no stock tips, and no wall of technical jargon. We'll keep it practical, clear, and useful.
Today, we're talking about SAP, business AI, and the idea of the autonomous enterprise.
By the end, you'll understand why AI agents are not just moving into chat windows. They are starting to move into the systems that run finance, supply chains, procurement, HR, and operations.
So, imagine for a second that a company accidentally orders, 10,000 tons of industrial steel, and not because a human made a typo on a purchase order, but because a chatbot hallucinated a supply shortage.
Yeah, that would be a nightmare.
Right, it would be a total disaster. So today, for this deep dive, we're stepping far outside the comfortable, familiar world of consumer AI. We aren't talking about bots that just, summarize your meeting notes or write polite emails.
No, definitely not.
We are dropping directly into the engine room of global operations. Because the stakes in that engine room are entirely different for you and your business.
They really are. I mean, if your personal AI assistant makes a grammatical error, it's slightly embarrassing. But if an enterprise AI makes a mistake, it can literally break a global supply chain.
Right, yeah.
Or it could skip payroll for like 3,000 employees. And that tension is really at the core of what we are unpacking today, centering around the recent announcements from SAP at their Sapphire 2026 event.
Okay, but before we even look at those AI announcements, we really have to lay down the foundation for you listening. Because we need to understand the architecture that actually runs these massive corporations, right?
Absolutely.
We hear the acronym all the time, but let's clearly define the ERP system, Enterprise Resource Planning. What is that exactly?
So in plain English, an ERP system is basically the central nervous system of a large organization. It's the underlying software infrastructure that handles the absolute core of the business.
Okay, so like the real heavy lift.
Exactly. It manages the real-time tracking of orders, the physical inventory sitting in warehouses, the procurement of raw materials, and, the complex financial ledgers. It connects all those moving parts together.
Let me try to use a simple analogy here. Tell me if this works. Think of a generative AI chatbot, like ChatGPT, as a highly capable, incredibly smart front desk assistant.
Okay, I like that.
It greets people, answers questions, maybe drafts some documents. But SAP and the ERP systems they build are closer to the company's entire back-office operating system. It's the plumbing, the electrical grid, the heavy machinery.
That is a perfect way to look at it, which means the data it holds is the lifeblood of the organization. For anyone studying enterprise technology, you really have to understand that these back-office systems act as a system of record.
A system of record. Let's actually sit with that phrase for a second, because it carries a lot of weight.
It carries a ton of weight. And that's because, ERP systems are where many companies keep their operational truth.
Their operational truth.
Right. Exactly. If there is a dispute about whether a vendor was actually paid, or if a pallet of microchips actually arrived at a factory in Munich, the ERP is the final definitive ledger. It does not guess. It records.
Wait, so if a front desk chatbot hallucinates, a customer just gets a weird email.
Yeah.
But if a back office system hallucinates, does a company actually accidentally order that 10,000 tons of steel they don't need?
Yes, that is exactly the risk, and that is exactly why plugging AI into this environment has been so incredibly difficult. A system of record cannot afford a creative hallucination. It demands absolute precision.
Right, because there's real money on the line.
Exactly. You can't just take a generic large language model, plug it into the back office, and just, hope it figures out how your specific global shipping logistics work.
That makes a lot of sense. And I'm guessing that reality is driving SAP's entire strategy right now.
It is. They are introducing something they specifically call business AI, and this is a crucial distinction from what you see in the consumer space.
Oh, so?
Well, business AI is not just a generic layer of intelligence sitting on top of a company. It is AI that is structurally built into the business process and the proprietary data of the business itself.
Okay, which brings us to Joule. SAP has had their AI copilot, Joule, for a bit. But looking at the Sapphire 2026 news, it became very clear that they're pushing this technology way beyond just a helpful voice in the corner of a screen.
Oh, absolutely. They are transitioning from conversational assistants to something much more proactive. They introduced Joule Studio and the AI Agent Hub.
Okay, so Joule Studio, what does that actually look like in practice?
This is where we start to see how an enterprise actually builds an AI workforce. Joule Studio is the developer environment, but it's really important to understand how it functions. A company doesn't just go in there and type a prompt saying, hey, make me a bot.
Right, it's not like asking for a recipe.
Exactly. They use the studio to set rigid parameters. They define exactly what business data the agent is allowed to access. They define what internal systems it has permission to write to, and what specific triggers actually require a human manager's sign-off.
So the studio is where you engineer the agent's boundaries and capabilities. You're building the guardrails.
Precisely. You build those guardrails.
And then once you've built this highly specialized agent, let's say, an agent specifically designed to handle delayed supplier invoices, you deploy it into the AI Agent Hub.
Yes, exactly. The hub acts as the centralized marketplace or kind of a control center for the enterprise. It's where different departments can go to discover, manage, and deploy these custom agents across their daily operations.
Okay, so all of this construction, studio, the hub, the custom agents, it all ladders up to a phrase SAP is leaning into heavily right now, which is the autonomous enterprise.
Yes, the autonomous enterprise.
And I want to pause here because honestly, that term sounds really intimidating to a lot of people. It sounds like the board of directors just turns off the lights, locks the office doors, and lets the servers run the company completely on their own.
Right, and we have to clarify that immediately. The autonomous enterprise does not mean a fully human-free company. SAP is not claiming they can just replace your entire workforce tomorrow.
Oh, thank goodness. So what does it actually mean then?
What it actually means is that highly repetitive, trackable, heavily rules-based processes are automated and propelled forward by AI agents. It elevates the humans to higher-level decision-making.
I think visualizing this really helps. Let's imagine a massive enterprise as a bustling city. The ERP system, the SAP infrastructure that represents the vital city grid, the roads, the water lines, the traffic lights.
I like this analogy. Keep going.
So if AI agents are going to actually help this city run, they can't just be tourists standing on the corner asking for directions. A tourist is just a chatbot.
Right, exactly.
To be useful, these agents need to be fully integrated city workers. They need to read the traffic lights, call up municipal zoning maps, check access permissions for restricted buildings, and leave a clear, auditable paper trail of every single action they took.
That is a great way to put it, and it really highlights the fundamental industry shift we are witnessing right now. We are moving from chatbots to business operations.
From chatbots to business operations, that's a huge leap.
It is. An integrated agent is actively participating in workflow orchestration. So it takes a complex task, like, say, onboarding a new employee, and it coordinates the entire flow.
So it's not just answering questions about how to onboard someone.
Right. It provisions the laptop in the IT system, it sets up the payroll profile in the HR system, and it assigns the mandatory training modules. And it does all of that without a human having to manually move the data from step A to step B.
Wow. And that completely rewrites the value proposition of buying this enterprise software in the first place. Because the real value of enterprise AI is not just answering questions. It is improving business processes.
Exactly. But there is a catch. An autonomous, perfectly orchestrated city implies that everything exists within one neat, unified border.
Right.
And we know corporate IT just doesn't work like that.
Oh, definitely not.
Yeah.
A global enterprise is much messier. It's less like an isolated city and more like a sprawling country built by a dozen different competing contractors. I mean, a massive company buys best-of-breed software, right?
Yes, they do.
They might use SAP for their core financials and supply chain, but their employees communicate all day on Microsoft Teams. And their massive predictive analytics, those are probably running on Google Cloud.
Exactly. And if Joule, SAP's agent, can only operate inside SAP software, its usefulness hits a brick wall the very second a process requires outside context.
Ah, I see where this is going.
Yeah. This is why SAP's expanded partnerships with Microsoft and Google Cloud are arguably the most critical part of the recent announcements. They are building out agentic interoperability.
Agentic interoperability. Right. That's a mouthful. Let's break down how that actually functions for, a person sitting at their desk on a Tuesday morning. Give me a scenario where that cross-border communication actually happens.
Okay, let's say a logistics manager is working inside Microsoft 365. They ask Microsoft's AI Copilot, hey, why is the European shipment delayed, and what is the financial impact?
Okay. Pretty standard question.
But Microsoft doesn't have the supply chain data. So the Microsoft agent securely reaches across the software border and queries the SAP agent. The SAP agent pulls the real-time shipping and financial ledgers.
Okay.
But maybe the delay is weather-related, right? So the SAP agent simultaneously queries a Google Cloud agent to run predictive modeling on a new shipping route. The agents compile all of this together, and the Microsoft Copilot delivers a complete synthesized answer to the manager right there in Teams.
Wait, really? So the agents are negotiating and retrieving data from each other across entirely different tech ecosystems instantly to complete a single workflow for the human.
Yes. Without the user ever having to log in to 3 different platforms. Agentic interoperability matters because large companies do not run on one app.
That is fascinating. But logically, for anyone who follows tech, this raises a massive red flag.
How so?
Well, we usually think of these massive tech giants, SAP, Microsoft, Google, as fierce, cutthroat competitors. They want to lock companies into their own proprietary ecosystems. Why are they suddenly so motivated to make their highly valuable AI agents play nice and talk to each other?
That's a great question, and the simple answer is because the market is giving them no choice.
Really? The buyers are forcing this.
Absolutely. The massive global corporations that buy this software are essentially demanding it. They are telling the tech giants, look, we pay millions for all of your services. If you build an AI that only works inside your own isolated walled garden, it is fundamentally broken for our actual use cases. The pressure from the buyers is what's forcing this collaboration. If the agents are trapped in silos, the autonomous enterprise just fails.
Okay, the theory sounds incredible. Agents collaborating across software borders, orchestrating workflows, managing the heavy lifting of the business. But as a manager or a business analyst, I'm not just turning this on tomorrow.
No, you definitely shouldn't.
The idea of autonomous code having the power to issue $1 million vendor payment or automatically order raw materials, it brings up some massive real-world roadblocks.
The roadblocks are immense. I mean, it is infinitely easier to demo an AI agent on a stage at a conference than it is to deploy one into a heavily regulated corporate environment. The transition to this model requires solving incredibly difficult engineering and human problems.
Let's pull on that thread, the hard part. Because the very first hurdle that comes to mind is permissions. If I deploy an agent that acts on behalf of a human manager, the internal security must be an absolute nightmare to configure.
Oh, it's a huge challenge.
Like, can this agent view executive salary data? Can it approve a customer refund without asking anyone? And if that agent does order 10,000 tons of steel, whose departmental budget is actually charged?
Right. And to solve that, you need an incredibly strict, robust governance layer. A company has to map out the digital boundaries for every single agent. You have to clearly define what they can read, what they can write, and what they can only suggest.
And closely tied to that governance layer is the actual data the AI is reading. We talked earlier about the ERP being the system of record. But what if a company's historical data is just a mess? What if their inventory categorization hasn't been updated in 5 years?
Then the AI agent is going to make terrible, incredibly costly decisions, and worse, it will make them at a scale and speed a human couldn't possibly match.
It's the old computing rule, right? Garbage in, garbage out. Just automate it, meaning you can ruin your company's ledger at the speed of light.
Exactly. That is the huge risk of process automation without proper oversight, which really forces us to look at the human reality of this technology because, let's be honest, there is a lot of anxiety around job displacement when we use words like autonomous.
Yeah, well, I want to push back on the standard corporate narrative here. The line we always hear at these keynotes is, oh, you're not firing your team, you're just changing their job descriptions.
Right, the classic line.
But if I manage a team of 10 accountants, and an AI agent hub suddenly handles 90% of the routine invoice matching, I surely do not need 10 people to handle the remaining 10% of the complex exceptions. How does the math actually work out for the everyday professional listening to this?
It's a highly disruptive shift, and it requires total honesty from leaders. Some roles that are strictly dedicated to manual data entry, yes, they will shrink. But the nature of work inside the enterprise is migrating upward. We are moving away from execution and moving heavily into auditing, strategy, and business process redesign.
So you're saying a junior accountant doesn't just enter numbers anymore. They go from doing the data entry to auditing the AI's data entry. They become someone who analyzes the flow of how numbers are entered, looking for systemic inefficiencies.
Yes. They look at a broken workflow and say, how do we rebuild this so the agent handles the heavy lifting, but the financial risk is still protected? Because ultimately, automation still needs governance, human approval, and exception handling.
Let's actually define those last two terms so our listeners have a clear grasp. What does human approval look like in an autonomous process?
So human approval means the agent does all the preliminary work. It drafts the purchase order, it verifies the department budget, it checks the supplier's history, but it cannot legally release the funds. The workflow pauses. A human manager reviews the summarized data and clicks approve. The human acts as the final firewall.
Got it. And exception handling, what is that?
Exception handling kicks in when reality gets messy. The agent processes thousands of routine shipments perfectly, but suddenly, a cargo ship is stuck at a port due to a labor strike, and a supplier submits a completely non-standard invoice in a different currency with strange legal terms.
Right, something the AI hasn't seen before.
Exactly. The agent recognizes it doesn't have the parameters to solve this. So it flags the exception, pulls all the relevant context together, and routes it to an experienced human worker to use their judgment and negotiation skills to fix it.
So, to survive and thrive in this new environment, employees essentially need to become AI managers. They need to understand their own department's operations deeply enough to know what tasks to hand over to the AI agent hub and what critical moments require their own human intuition.
That is exactly the new skill set. The workers who understand how to safely orchestrate agents across these complex systems, they will become the most valuable assets in the entire enterprise.
Wow. Okay, let's zoom out and synthesize everything we've unpacked today for this deep dive. We started with the familiar front desk chatbot and traveled deep into the engine room of the ERP system. We explored SAP's vision for business AI and the undeniable necessity of agents communicating across platforms. For you listening, trying to navigate how this impacts your own career or company, I think there are three vital takeaways.
I agree. First, enterprise AI is shifting rapidly from conversational bots into core operations. We are transitioning from simple conversational assistance to automated workflow orchestration within systems of record.
Second, true AI impact requires interoperability. An autonomous vision fails in a silo. As we saw with SAP, Microsoft, and Google Cloud, agents must cross software borders to get meaningful work done.
And third, humans aren't being completely replaced. As processes become automated, the human role shifts from manual execution toward designing governance layers, providing final approvals, and handling complex, unprecedented exceptions.
That's today's AI Business English Daily. One simple takeaway. The next wave of enterprise AI may not live only in chat windows. It may live inside the systems where companies actually run.
If this episode was useful, subscribe and share it with someone trying to make sense of the AI business world.
Question of the day. If AI agents entered your company's core systems, which process would you want them to improve first? Finance, HR, procurement, sales, or supply chain?
We'll see you next time with another real business story from the AI world.